Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 150 subs. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and I hope I continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, in the American Conference on Saturday, there's a football game between the UCF Knights traveling on the road at the Memphis Tigers. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now, UCF is 6-2 and 3-1 in the American Conference to start this season, and Gus Malzahn has done a great job to continue to have the success at UCF that Scott Frost and Josh Heupel had, and he has done a really good job. And in Week 1, they beat South Carolina State 56-10. That was a good win. But then they lost to Louisville 20-14. That was a tough loss. Obviously, Louisville has been pretty decent in the ACC this season, but still they could have won that game. And then they beat Florida Atlantic 40-14. That was a good win on the road. And then they beat Georgia Tech 27-10. And that was a good win because Georgia Tech's having a struggling season. And then they beat SMU 41-19, and SMU's a solid program, and they got that win. Then they beat Temple 70-13, and UCF just destroyed Temple in this game. And then they lost at ECU 34-13, and this was a tough loss because ECU's playing much better football. It was on the road, and they really struggled in this game. But then they beat Cincinnati 25-21, and that was a good win because Cincinnati's a really good team. And quarterback John Rice Plumlee had 71 yards and 26 rushing yards against Cincinnati, but he's a game-time decision against Memphis because of the fact that he got hurt in the Cincinnati game and he only played halfway. And quarterback Mikey Keene, the backup, had 176 yards and 9 rushing yards against Cincinnati, and he played well in John Rice Plumlee's absence. If Mikey Keene is the quarterback for UCF against Memphis, he is completely capable, and I think that he will still do really good for UCF, but UCF would like to have quarterback John Rice Plumlee back, especially for his dual threat ability. Running back R.J. Harvey at 84 yards and 2 touchdowns, a really solid running back. And running back Isaiah Bowser, the Northwestern transfer, 58 yards and a touchdown. Both are really good running backs for UCF. And wide receiver Ryan O'Keefe is kind of a Swiss Army knife for UCF at 69 yards receiving and 51 yards rushing for UCF against Cincinnati. And again, he does so much for the UCF offense. And on the defense side of the ball, linebacker Jason Johnson, 4 tackles. And linebacker Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, 3 tackles for UCF against Cincinnati. UCF's defense is solid. Their offense is really good. And UCF's got a really good team overall. Now, on the Memphis side, Ryan Silverfield, at head coach, has done a good job at Memphis to continue to what Memphis's head coaches in the past have done as well. Memphis has been a really solid program for a long time. But this year, they are struggling a little bit, but they're still a really solid team. And they're 4-4 and 2-3 in the American Conference, but again, the record is a little bit skewed because again, they could easily have a better record than what they have. They lost to Mississippi State in Week 1, 49-23. Not a bad loss. Mississippi State's a really good SEC football program. But then they beat Navy on the road 37-13, and that was a good win. Then they beat Arkansas State 44-32, decent win there. And then they beat North Texas 44-34. They did struggle to blow these teams out, but they were still good wins. But then they beat Temple 24-3, so obviously not as big of a blowout as UCF's win over Temple, but still a good win. But then they lost to Houston 33-32 in a game that they were leading the whole time, but they let Houston come back and win. And then they lost at East Carolina in 4 overtimes, 47-45. Memphis played fantastic in this game. They just could not stop ECU, and they obviously, when overtime, anything can happen, especially on those 2-point conversions. They lost a really close game there. And then they lost at Tulane, who's been fantastic this season in the American Conference, 38-28. So it's not like Memphis's losses are bad. And in that Tulane game, quarterback Seth Hennigan at 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 42 rushing yards. Very solid quarterback. He's much better than he was last year, and he was good as a freshman. But Seth Hennigan is only getting better for Memphis. He's had a really good season, even though they're 4-4. Wide receiver Eddie Lewis at 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great receiver for Seth Hennigan to throw to. Running back Jevion Ducker, 21 yards, 16 receiving yards. Kind of like Ryan O'Keefe for UCF, kind of a Swiss Army knife. Tight end Caden Pre-scoring at 55 yards. Very solid tight end for Memphis. Maybe potentially he could have NFL hopes. He's a really solid tight end. And on the defensive side of the ball, defensive back Quindle Johnson, 11 tackles. Linebacker Zay Collins at 5 tackles. Linebacker Tyler Murray, 5 tackles for Memphis against Tulane. Memphis has a solid defense, but they haven't given up a lot of points this season. If their defense can get teams to score less in the future, in their future games, I think Memphis can win some more games. But Memphis's defense has been decent, but they have to do better. And I think Memphis has a really good offense, but they just have not found ways to win. So who do I think is going to win this game? This game is at Memphis, and that really helps Memphis out because of the fact the home field advantage for Memphis is really solid. Memphis has a really good team, but they've had a lot of tough losses. They've lost 3 games in a row they could have won, potentially, especially the ECU and Houston games. They only lost by 3 points combined, and Memphis does have a really solid team, but the record is not showing it. UCF's having a great season under Gus Malzahn. And on offense and defense, they're really solid on both sides of the ball, and they've had some really great wins. Now, they have laid a couple of eggs. Obviously, the ECU and Louisville losses, they both played terrible in these games. And I think that if UCF can maybe lay an egg here, I think Memphis can really take advantage and win this game. But UCF is starting to play better football more as the season has gone along. And Memphis, even though they're still a really good football team, has really been struggling against their better opponents just to find ways to win. I think UCF's going to go on the road and beat Memphis 31-28. I think Memphis can win. I think Ryan Silverfield is doing a really good job at Memphis, and I think Memphis has got a really good team. But all those tough losses to all the better conference opponents for Memphis, even though Memphis does have a bye and they've had all the time in the world to study UCF, and if John Rice Plumlee for UCF is not available to play, I think that will help Memphis as well because of the fact they might be able to stop Mikey Keene a little bit better, who's not as much of a runner. But I still think UCF's going to win this game, even if John Rice Plumlee is out. But if he's in, I think UCF's going to have a better chance to win. And again, Memphis has had a tough sled in all these games that they've had, and they've just had close losses. And I think, unfortunately for Memphis, they're going to have another close loss, and UCF's going to go on the road and beat Memphis 31-28. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think UCF or Memphis is going to win this game and why. And I will see you next time.